thank you for joining us on this YouTube video today. Here we have me and Yuri here, Legally Flawless, presenting to you Steve, who's with LSAT Unplugged, and he's going to teach you guys some tips and tricks and just share our experiences with the LSAT. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video today. Stay tuned for more information. All right, so first thing we're going to talk about is the differences between the LSAT then versus the LSAT Flex. Now, Yuri and I, we both have SAT for the LSAT, so we don't really know exactly what the LSAT. We don't know the experience of taking the LSAT during the pandemic and the coronavirus and all of this. So we're just here to ease right into it. So if you guys want to touch on any topic, you can. For me, with the LSAT, I remember I took it multiple times. I didn't take it just like one and done. I actually sat for it 3 times. The first time I didn't really study because I had like this idea that I was super smart and I can do it. So I took about 2 weeks to study for the test. I was in Vegas like a week before that. So I literally just showing you my mindset that I just didn't take it serious. And the second time I was like, okay, well, let me take this serious. And I, purchased the Kaplan books. I got like some Power Score books off of Amazon, did some things like this. And my score did improve significantly, but it wasn't the score that I wanted. And so from that on, I just was extra motivated, right? Because I got kicked in the butt twice, basically. And, I don't like feeling like that. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to pick myself up my bootstraps and just take this really, really serious because I want to go to law school. I had so many mentors in my ear telling me that I had to eat, breathe, and sleep the test if I wanted to pass. I couldn't half do it, half study, I had to put my all into it. And so from that point, I took a LSAT prep course and I studied, I think 2 times during the week. We had classes where we'll study. And then on every Saturday, I took the full LSAT from 4 hours from 8 o'clock in the morning to 12. And I honestly think just taking the simulated exam as much as I could, when I took it on that 3rd time, it was just like I was taking a regular practice test. And it was awesome. And I knew I passed it and I felt so comfortable walking out of there. And it was like such a good feeling, So that's just my experience with the LSAT.
That's awesome, Tasha. It's so funny how like your experience was actually really common. A lot of folks, they take it kind of just to see how they'll do. Their mind's not really in that space to maximize their potential. You get hit, then you got to pick yourself up and go for that retake. So it's cool to see that you actually ended up succeeding in the end and that you didn't just leave it where it was before, but you changed your approach. You took it differently the next time around. And that really made a difference for you, it sounds like.
It really did.
What about you, Yuri? What was it like for you?
For me, it was very different. At the time, I was working 2 jobs. I did know I wanted to go to law school, but I just didn't have the drive back then. So I ended up taking it my first time and I missed the score by 4 or 6 points. I studied during the week, but only like 3 or 4 hours. After I took it the first time, it's like I was just like Tajha. I felt like I just needed to take it so that I would have the experience of taking it. But I didn't really push myself as I could have because I was also working at the time. So my approach was different per se because I had to figure out how many hours I could put into it while still working 2 jobs, while still preparing myself to transition to go into law school. So I ended up taking it a second time and I passed to get into the law school that I chose to go to. And I had a lot of trouble though with the logic games. So I kind of just focused my efforts on the parts that I scored lower in, which was logic games. And I took YouTube videos. I had a Kaplan prep book. I went to a online prep course. And I also utilized just like the different exams or practice exams so I could teach myself how to study the logic games because that's what I did poorly in. But after that, in increasing my intake from probably 3 to 4 hours to 4 to 6, that gave me that extra boost to put the energy into those other parts that I did poorly on, which was logic games. And I ended up getting the score and I got in and things changed. But it was definitely a transition because I kind of felt scared because I was also working at the time. So it was like, should I put more into it or should I just keep doing what I'm doing? So I had to change my approach.
Yeah, that's really the key, is changing your approach when something previously isn't working. One thing that jumped out to me as well is putting in the time and really dedicating it. And then lastly, I think focusing on your weak areas. A lot of times, whatever someone's least favorite section is, a lot of times it is logic games, especially at first. It's too easy for people to just focus on the parts they like. I hear it all the time. Like, I don't like games, so I'm not going to touch it. I feel good about logical reasoning as I get more right, so I focus there.
Yes.
But you got to work on your weak areas as hard as it is and find a way to appreciate them for what they are. If you can find the good in it and come to enjoy it even just a little bit, it'll make a big difference.
Yeah,
I think so, because it really ended up making a big difference after I saw it, and I just had to focus on it. I guess I was more of the person, well, I did do well in other areas, so logic games was very, very difficult. So I had to take kind of like a step back and think, maybe if I start putting more into it, like I can understand it. It's just taking the time to break it all down.
Mm-hmm.
So for sure, that helped a lot.
Yeah. And for me, it was different because logic games, it was initially one of my harder areas. But I don't know, I just kept doing it, I started having fun with it, and it just started being like a literal game, I started thinking it was like a logic game. I guess it's like the nerd in me or something. Like, I just liked it. And I'm just like, oh my God, tracking it, scheduling. Like, I'm so excited about it. Like, once I figured out what they're doing and like the rules, and then I just learned how to pass. I knew I couldn't get them all done, like in a section, but I knew I could get a solid 3, and I just tried to focus on that, and then I moved on. But my biggest challenge was the logical reasoning, and I don't know why, but it was like, it's half of the test, so it was kind of scary. But I ended up passing the long run, so I guess it all worked out. But it was
Most definitely.
It was really, it's really a difficult test to wrap your mind around it, because you're definitely thinking differently than I've ever thought before. I mean, with any standardized exam or test, it definitely challenges your thinking and pushes you to think in a different way in another area.
Yeah, it really is. And logical reasoning especially is kind of a grab bag where there's like a dozen different question types. So it can be hard to figure out what they're going to throw at you next. But there are actually patterns underlying the exam. And if you can come to see those patterns, the games, it's a bit more apparent because you have ordering versus grouping, but logical reasoning, like a dozen plus different types, it can be hard to see what is actually the commonalities between some of them. Mm-hmm. And it takes time to get there. It takes time to really study it because it is a kind of a science, but they don't give you the formulas. You have to kind of figure the formulas out. And that's what I try to show folks. But speaking of differences with the flex, I mean, logical reasoning is no longer half. It's only a third. So that's one of the biggest changes.
Wow. That.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they changed it up. They made it shorter. They removed the experimental section and they removed one of the logical reasoning. So Tajha, you were saying earlier, like you were sitting down for 4 hours, 8 to 12. Now it takes 2 hours. So it's crazy. How do you feel about that?
That I feel happy for people, because honestly, that's one of the things that I'm glad that it's progressing. It's progressing. Maybe it's here to stay for a little while, whatever. But that was one of the biggest things, like the endurance, sitting down for 4 hours to take an exam. Yeah. It is something really crazy for me. I'm sorry, just for me to sit in somewhere for something for 4 hours. I mean, I understand why at the point when you get into law school, because your law school exams end up being 4 hours, and it seems like it goes by in 2 hours. But I'm happy that it's 2 hours now. I mean, it should be less stressful.
Yeah, I mean, considering they're doing it during a pandemic, I think that's well enough time, and they should be able to get through it. It won't be as so hectic as it used to be.
Yeah, same. I mean, I support it. I mean, part of the reason they made it shorter, really the main reason, is because of online proctoring. And bathroom breaks in part. So it would have cost more to pay the proctors to watch people for longer. And then they didn't want people getting up in the middle of the exam to go to the bathroom. I don't really get why, because it's hard to cheat on an exam like this anyway. But right. Once you finish one section, you can't go back anyway. But that's one of the reasons. And they've been doing it all year so far like this. And so I'm hopeful it'll continue. Maybe they'll add in back one more section because they got to test out future questions. But for now, at least, I mean, it's kind of nice that given that you're taking the LSAT during a pandemic in a new format, not knowing what law school is going to be like in the future, at least to have fewer sections and be done with it sooner, I think is kind of nice. So I'm happy about it too.
Yeah, they don't have to go through as much as we did, so that should be good. And it'll give them a little ease of transitioning into law school. So I think that's really going to be great. Another thing that I wanted to discuss was time. So I was a person that was like, I'm not really good at taking tests under time conditions, but just considering that, that really was important for me to try to get through the test. Because the first time I took it, I did not finish every section, which it could be discouraging at times, but they also have to be mindful, I think, about your time, but also just, I guess, having that pace into still having at the back of your mind, I need to finish it. I still need to finish it. So that would be important for them to think about.
Yeah, the pacing aspect is really important and comes down to a couple of things. One of them is on logical reasoning, for example. The earlier questions are actually easier, so you want to get through them at a faster pace and trust your gut on those, so you have more time for the tougher ones that come later. But if let's say you're aiming for a 160, you don't need to get every single question right. And so it could make sense in some cases to leave out some of the tougher questions. Like Tasha was saying, she would do 3 games and do better than trying to do all 4. So you could actually get a higher accuracy doing fewer questions. Depends on your goals. But for some people, that could be what they need to solidly break into a certain score bracket.
Yeah, most definitely. I think that would be important for them. Maybe now it's different. I'm not sure how it is, but I think taking the time out and just having that time to get through it will make the test better. It will make you getting through it better, because it was definitely hard for me. Definitely.
Yeah. So it's one logical reasoning, one logic games, one
the reading comp, yeah,
then one experimental.
Well, so on the Flex, there's not even any experimental section. So it's just the 3 sections, 1 games, 1 reasoning, 1 reading comp, back to back, and you're done. That's it.
35
minutes. Writing section?
Yeah, 35 each. Yeah, so the writing sample, so 35 minutes for each of those 3 sections, just like before. And the writing sample, that's right, it's no longer in the same test sitting. They separated it out actually last year, even pre-COVID, to be online as a separate login session. So you weren't doing it at the test center before, starting in June 2019. And now with the Flex, still, the writing is a separate time. You book it separately, and you've got to do it before they'll release your score. That's a new policy that just started with the August LSAT Flex. So you must do the writing sample before they will give you your score, because people weren't completing it because they were just focusing on the scored stuff.
I mean, we do have to focus on that though, but that's good that they have it, like they can get that out the way now. I think that'll be more important, because now they can have all that time to focus on just the 3 sections of the LSAT, which would be very, very important for them, because they can put all their time there and make a good grade. Well, pass and score.
Yeah, and your brain's not fried doing the writing sample after 5 LSAT sections. No one's doing the best writing after sitting there for 3 hours. At least this way, you're doing it separately. You can type it, which is nice, because let's face it, most of what we create now in written form is typed. How many people type way more than they handwrite, at least I think in my experience. And so it's nicer for law schools also. They can read what people are typing out versus handwriting.
Yeah, it'll be easier for them too. Mm-hmm. Oh God, that is great. They're going to be fine now then. It's definitely going to be fine. I think the only thing would be different is sitting down at the computer, taking it physically for that long period of time. The good thing is they have less sections, so they will be able to focus more, and they won't be able to worry about that 4th or 5th section as we had to 4 years ago. Huh?
Along with the writing sample.
Along with the writing sample, like we had to do, so they should be better off now. I think it's going to be good, but considering the pandemic, it should be a little more easier for them now just so they can have a glance at how law school is before they get into it and they transition into law school from the test.
Yeah, for the Zoom School of Law, right? If law school is online, you're doing Zoom meetings, you're doing webcam, microphone, the ProctorU experience with the Flex, it's kind of a little bit similar in certain ways. I mean, the weird thing with ProctorU is that you can't see the proctor, but they could see you. So that's a little bit weird feeling, right? Like somebody's watching you, but they're not only watching you, they're actually watching like several people at the same time. It's not like a one-to-one thing. So I wouldn't obsess over them, like looking at you if you like scratch your nose or something. It's really just more for security. But I think overall, the biggest thing, although it could be easier to do it from the comfort of your own home, you also just want to make sure your internet's good and that you're not going to have any roommates or family or significant others who are going to interrupt you during, because that could invalidate the whole test because of security. So you want it to be quiet where you could focus and where nobody's going to barge into the room.
Yeah, I saw recently, it's kind of a little bit on the bar exam, but I saw recently 2 people were just recently taking the bar exam this past weekend, and some people have literally had to go take them in hotel rooms. I thought it was just interesting because, they can't be distracted. This is the new way to take the bar, or just take any standardized test where you can't be interrupted on your proctor. So
yeah, same for the LSAT Flex, actually. Yeah. That if you don't have a good home environment for internet or because of other people around in your living space, like they'll pay for you to take it out of a hotel. They'll reimburse you up to $125 to take it there. And you just want to make sure that the hotel has good internet. But if they do, then hopefully you'll be in good shape.
That's good to know for the people who are watching.
Oh, that's awesome. That is very awesome. I did not know that.
Yeah, funny. So anything else we got to cover before we wrap up? Any other questions you think your audience might find useful?
I would want to say maybe just if they are working, that they need to create a schedule for them to study for the LSAT. Because I know that's one thing that when I took it the first time, I would have utilized the same resources and created a more effective study plan, then I would have made the score that I needed to make the first time. But and also to not let them be discouraged after not getting such a high score, because that's also important too.
Oh yeah, for sure. So first I'll cover that last part first, because I think it's really important. You can always retake. Law schools don't average multiple scores. They only take the highest. And as you've seen, like if you change your approach the next time around, you can do significantly better. And that high score is what counts. So don't let your previous scores define you. You can always retake. And of course, you could be a fantastic law student and attorney, no matter whatever your LSAT score is. With regard to the study plans, I've actually created a variety of both free and low cost LSAT study plans to show you exactly what to be doing every single day over the course of your prep. And I'll send you the link if you want to include that in the description. Yeah, but I'll just summarize here briefly that basically you want to break down each section and each question type within that section. So let's say you start with logic games, the easiest ordering games, then the moderate ordering games, then difficult ordering games, easy grouping, moderate grouping, difficult grouping, and so on into the other sections, other question types. I've laid out exactly. And the biggest thing I would say is doing untimed work and learning the theory and the concepts before drilling several problems of that type, before then getting into full-length exams. So it's like accuracy first, then pacing with individual sections, then endurance. That's like my quick 30-second summary on that. But I've got plenty more inside the courses, as well as inside those free and low-cost study plans.
Okay.
Well, sounds great. Thank you so much, Steve.
Well, thanks to both of you for having me. If I could just quickly summarize some other ways folks can get in touch with me if they want to find out more about the LSAT prep and the admissions and all that.
No problem. Go right ahead.
Thanks. Go ahead. So again, my name is Steve Schwartz. I run the LSAT blog. I also host the LSAT Unplugged YouTube channel and podcast. I've also got the LSAT Unplugged Facebook group, Instagram. I recently joined TikTok. So I'm putting out lots of LSAT resources on a wide variety of platforms. And folks who are just looking to get started, I've put together a free easy LSAT cheat sheet they can download at bit.ly/LSAT cheat sheet. And for folks who are watching on my end, would you all want to share more about Legally Flawless and where folks can get in touch with you?
Thank you so much for allowing us to talk a little bit more about Legally Flawless today. Just say a little bit about how we got started. Legally Flawless is a new business, and it was just started and founded on the passion that Yuri and I have had for business and entrepreneurship, and just having an overall creative spirit and creative energy, along with our legal expertise. And so this has just helped us to want to push our own selves to the next level. And we decided we should start a business to where we help other entrepreneurs and business owners and potential business owners, get them going to the next level. And we would just do that by, helping them pick which business entity they should choose, whether they should be a for-profit or nonprofit, whether they should get things copyrighted, whether they should be working on logos, whether, they need a business plan, whether they need investors, just things like this. And we will help our clients to help them turn all of their creative ideas and creative talents into reality. And that's just what Legally Flawless is all about. Thank you so much.
Yes, if anyone has any questions on business plans or registering their business, we also do that. And we also are starting a YouTube channel, which will focus more on how to pass the LSAT, how to get into law school, and how to start your business or your brand. Other than that, I think that is it. And y'all can contact us on Instagram. And we also have an email address, Steve, that we can send to you, so you can post it in the link also. And we look forward to meeting you guys and getting creative.
Fantastic. It was great connecting with both of you. And thanks again.
Thank you so much, Steve. We look forward to speaking with you again.